part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I am your host, Damon Royster, and today I am over the moon thrilled to be talking about Iron Man 3, a.k.a. the best Iron Man movie. Some people may disagree, but they're wrong. This is the best Iron Man movie ever made, and I have two of the best guests I have ever met. Man, I know them so well. Our first guest, you know him as chief culinary chef at literally every restaurant, a writer-comedian, host of the Bullshit Alert podcast. It's your friend and mine, Danny Marshall.
Hey, yo. Hi, Damon. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, Danny, hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. Honestly, I'm doing better than normal because I just watched Iron Man 3. So that put me in just such a great mood that I'm ready.
Beautiful. It does put people in a great mood. It's a great movie. Our second guest to talk about this film is a known actor, the town pervert of all of Chicago, producer of many a defunct CIC show. Please welcome to your ears, Patrick Webb.
Thank you. That was the appropriate introduction and the one I exactly told you to say. You did a great job.
Yeah,
didn't need the note card.
Yeah, remember when I said you were an actor?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I did.
Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I am kind of energized, having literally just finished this movie, and I cannot wait to talk about it because my opinions have changed on it over the years. I'll say that.
I'm thrilled. Okay, I'm so excited. All right, so Iron Man 3, going back to Danny Marshall, what is your relationship like to Iron Man 3? Let's start there. With the film, the Iron Man franchise, how are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing great. I love Iron Man. You know, I mean, Iron Man 2 has its moments, but you know,
which ones?
Yeah,
the opening credits and the ending credits.
Got it. Gotcha.
But I love Iron Man 3. I love Iron Man. I love Tony Stark. It's for me. I was at I think I'm a bit younger than you guys, so I was at the peak prime age of middle school, high school when these were all coming out, and sorry, and
your youth is too bright.
And boy, was it just where I could imagine technology was. The Iron Man franchise was 2 steps ahead of me at the time of them coming out, and I was just so over the moon. And all I have. Yes, I did take notes when I watched this, and in all caps, multiple times, I just wrote suits in this movie because that's visually my biggest takeaway and how much I love I don't know. I just think it makes it fun, and Iron Man's fun. I love it.
Iron Man's fun. Yeah, this movie has more suits than the USA television series Suits,
which it famously had so many suits.
So many suits, but there's more here.
Yeah.
That's lovely that you're so young, Danny. Patrick, you said your relationship with this movie changed. Like, you just watched it and you have a different take. What's your different take?
So I would say the first time I watched Iron Man 3, I thought it was pretty good to like just okay to pretty good. And I've rewatched it over the pandemic, and having just rewatched it, something struck me that I never caught the first few times that I'd seen it. It's kind of the third act of the Iron Man story. It is. Thank you. Yes. So like there's a lot of therapy components, which we'll get to in this. It literally starts off with Eiffel 65 blue. It's like, oh, Tony's going to be sad in this one, but also it's the 90s. But like, as I was watching this, I was like, oh, he finally realizes that he's the problem. It's like the first one was like, I'm at war with my company. The second one was like, oh, I'm at war with my dad. And this third one, he goes, me, I'm the problem. Okay, it's like I've created this military industrial complex and I'm the only solution, which is also a weapon. And oh, I am actually the problem and the solution. And like, how do I stop this from? I think that like there's some deepness to this script that I did not catch the first few times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is my favorite like superhero trope, which I feel like I haven't really seen it since Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire's.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you say his name. But the idea of like, let's take the superhero, but remove his power. Like, he does not have the suit for most of Act 2, but he still has to be Iron Man. And like, I feel like, God, I'm going to get emotional. No, I won't. That's so stupid. It's Saturday morning. No one cries on a Saturday morning.
But you are hungover, so that's okay.
I went to a mezcal bar for the listeners. But this idea of like Tony being Iron Man without the Iron Man suit is, I think, really powerful and cool. And I'm going to say it's powerful for a superhero film because we're all here to watch them be heroes and save the goddamn day. Am I wrong?
No.
Good. Thank you.
No, I totally agree. I think I love that this movie showcased the poster, even just like one of the posters, it's him, he's half in a suit, but there's like 30 suits around him, and it's about that they're part of him, he's part of them, but he's also not in them for most of the movie, and until we have that great action, set piece at the end. But it is, and it's what's remarkable to me it's the first, and we get this in Civil War, but it's the first Marvel movie with like repercussions, kind of, whether they're like mentally or for other people, because we get all the Sokovia backlash later on in the MCU, but right now the effects of New York, and it's the beginning of the beginning of Phase 2, right? So it sets the tone for Phase 2, and it's set in a post New York world, and we get a kind of there is an effect to that, what happened, and directly a mental health effect, which is nice to see in a Marvel movie.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, it's fresh in my mind because everyone's favorite Chicago Air and Water show was this weekend, but like there's a lot of like PTSD elements to it. Yeah. So like you have the military folks that are amputees that have some PTSD. You have him, like the first two movies are a lot about Tony like trying to keep his body alive, like Iron Man 2. He's drinking the stuff to keep the shrapnel away. This one is like, he's doing something that another famous Tony S does, Tony Soprano. He's having some panic attacks, and he's like, I need to get my mind right, which I think is a very interesting theme. It's like, and you said New York, the kid brings up New York, and he's like, starts having a panic attack. It's like, there's a lot of PTSD in this movie.
Oh, yeah, the kid from The Christmas Story.
How did you get out of the wormhole?
The creepiest child I've ever seen. Why would you whisper something to a grown man in a public place? Strange.
That whole part of the movie. We'll get to that.
Isn't that kid at a bar? Why is that kid at a bar?
I think it's more, it gave me like TGI Fridays vibes where like the adults can drink, but the kids.
So then why is Tony Stark at a TGI Fridays?
Because he's Tony Stark, Danny, and he can go wherever.
He's in Tennessee, and there's nothing else to do. So he's
okay.
This is before the Tennessee. Let's go back. I do want to address the blue of it all, and that whole my favorite day of all time, the last day of the 90s. We all remember where we were. Me in a living room somewhere. How Patrick Webb, when you heard, well, first of all, Patrick Webb, can you sing for us the first opening lines to the song Blue?
Yeah. So listen up. Here's the story about a little guy who lives in a blue world. All day and all night, everything he sees just blue, like him, inside and outside blue. It writes the check for the rest of the movie, and I'm here for it.
I would agree. I was like, this is where we're starting on my favorite day of all time, and one of my not favorite songs, but songs I'll listen to it from beginning to end if it's on. We're starting here, and we get a little cameo, an Iron Man 1.
We got Jensen.
Jensen.
I love that as a that's an early like Easter egg for, we're not that deep into the MCU, and even just being able to self-reference other Iron Man stuff was nice. So to be able to have, because if you look at these two movies separately, there's not a big connection. But then in Iron Man 1, which Damon and I watched together recently,
jealous.
Jensen's like, we met once. We met in Switzerland, and we get to see it.
It's incredible. Such a tiny thing. I wish there was more, but I guess there couldn't be more because then the cave thing wouldn't have been as epic. So I think what really helps this movie, or helps me love this movie, it has a very like almost, dare I say, superhero noir element to it. Because there's an actual mystery going on. Like there's three elements. You got, Rebecca Hall as this Maya woman who invents extremists. You've got Guy Pearce really buck-toothing it all the way to hell. And then, you know, the then you got the Mandarin, and it's like, how do these three disparate things come together? And it, you know, it's up to T Stark to find it out. And I don't know, I love it. I feel like everything gets set up in this little flashback here. Patrick, how did you enjoy Miss Maya, played by Rebecca Hall, who was it? Maya Hansen.
Maya Hansen. Yeah. So I have a weird thought as I was watching this. I would love to see a version of this movie where she was the big bad. I think like, as much as I like Guy Pearce, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, I think
is that what his friends call him?
Wait, yeah, that's what he's known from, right? We all know, not Memento, it's Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Great movie. Anyway,
yeah.
I think that like this movie, I think my one big complaint about this movie is like it's a bit of a structural, because there seems to be like not quite a 3-act structure, not quite a 5-act structure. It might be some studio interference here that made it a little confusing, but like this movie, I think could have used one tiny bit of a less thing. And I'm like, oh, I wonder, as much as I like Guy, what Maya as Big Bad would have looked like. And I think that could have been cool. For what she is in this movie, I think she's fine.
She's definitely a step up from like the usual lady villain who's like, maybe dating the main villain, maybe not, like, you know, a Harley Quinn or
right
Parker Posey from Superman Returns.
I do like her self-awareness in that, like, the conversation she has with Pepper Potts, where it's like, hey, we all start off with big altruistic ambitions, and then, you know, capitalism and ego get in the way, and now I'm the bad guy somehow.
Famously, that scene passes the Bechdel test.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Who knew? Iron Man 3, a little bit of a feminist.
Okay.
So we meet Guy Pearce. Danny, talk to me about Guy Pearce and the whole Extremis plot. You liking it?
Yeah.
You liking Guy Pearce? You like that?
So yeah, I as a comic book fan, I read the whole Extremis story arc when it came out, but when I heard that would be, you know, some sort of the premise for this movie, I got the comics and I read it. And it's a really, I mean, the whole idea of Extremis is very cool and advances Iron Man. And it's been a while since I read it, so I might not be 100% accurate, but I know a lot of it has to do with part of Extremis also kind of has to do with the suit coming to him. And there was more of a direct connection of him being able to bring the suit towards him using Extremis remotely in the comic books. But I think this is a great introduction to AIM, to bring them into the MCU.
AOL Instant Messenger.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Adam.
I like Guy Pearce. I agree with you, Patrick. I think Maya was underused. Just overall, I think if we take Tony and Pepper and their individual relationships with these two villains, there's too many backstories for us to care about everyone. I could have gone without the Pepper Killian story. Like, I didn't need that. He could have done it just to get back at Tony, even though it kind of, and I love Pepper in this movie, and we get to see her in action, and we get to see her still as the boss and still in control. But the weird, like, he's showing her brain. Yeah, it's funny, but I didn't need that. And I liked that, you know, for me, their relationship that didn't get wrapped up, and I didn't really care about it. Whereas, you know, he's doing this and Maya's doing, you know, they're kind of getting back at Tony. He's getting back at Tony. She's trying to do it at first for a good reason. So I like where you know, what we have. I think, as you were saying, Patrick, we could have maybe, you know, click the delete button a little bit.
Right. This sounds like a good old case of everybody following all the network notes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there with Pepper, there, you know, she does sadly end up being like, I think at one point they literally say a trophy for like Tony Stark, and Guy Pearce is essentially dark Tony Stark. Like, he's the evil version of Tony.
Yeah.
And it's like, who gets girl? You get girl? No, he get girl. who get the girl?
Girl get him at end.
Ooh, girl get him in the end. There is not a female identifying person on this podcast, but I'm going to say Iron Man 3 is a feminist movie.
I think we're all in a position to agree with you.
Let's all agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk to me, Patrick. You're a big goop head. So how did you feel watching?
I notoriously
Patrick
have
the
multiple goop candles.
Patrick
They're
Goopy Webb.
Affordable if you are very rich.
Yeah, a steal if you're already wealthy. But Gwyneth Paltrow, did she come through for you in this film? Were you like, that's my Gwen?
Yes, actually. I do. Feelings about Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop aside, which for me, very positive. I love the Tony and Pepper relationship. It's one of my favorite things about the MCU, all from start to finish. And I think this, other than one scene at the end, was that actualized. And I'll say this, I don't want to jump around, and I'm sorry, but there's a moment at the end where we think Pepper Potts died, and there is not a second of breath given to that. Tony just turns his head and looks at Guy Pearce, and I was like, wait a minute, don't we think Pepper just died? And then like 60 seconds later, there's like a gag where Mach 42 breaks all over the place. And he's like, whatever. And I was like, hold on. Didn't like your reason for living just catch on fire and fall from a massive tower? Other than that moment, I think that we get the Pepper we wanted.
Yeah, we'll talk about that third act. That's where I'm like, I don't know. As much as I complain about romance in the MCU, I think they do a bad job every time, except for Pepper and Tony. I would rather watch Tony and Pepper argue over a giant stuffed bunny than watch another drippy, sappy scene of Captain America and Peggy Carter stare at each other longingly in five layers.
Thank you so much for saying
in
that.
like 5 layers of military garb. It's like, what are we doing?
Right, because we know something about the two of them, and they have their own like 3-dimensional POV, and we earned their relationship, and I love it.
They also inherently, are all each other has, and they say that in the first movie. Or is that the first one, or is that this one, where it's just like they bring it up multiple times, but also all of his workshop, all he's doing, he's spending all this time for her. He wants to protect her. He wants to protect him. He's seen what's out there, and it personalizes the stakes of New York, of all of this, of there's this greater world, and I need to do it. Tracks with the Tony Stark story that spans 10, 12 years. That is, I need to put a suit of armor around the people I love, around the world. I need to do this. And it starts and ends with Pepper, from these movies to, her saying it's okay to die. And I agree. And I think it's just, they are very complicated people because of kind of bubble that they're in of who he is. And, we don't obviously get the backstory of how she got this job and how she's been there, but they're all they have. And then we get to see them both grow. I love seeing Pepper in an Iron Man suit. And I would argue we haven't seen it enough. I would have liked to see it more in other movies, but I like the kind of the added role she's had as each movie has gone on in the 3 Iron Man movies.
Oh, truly. Pepper rocks. I think we can just be brave and say it, because again, this is a feminist movie
and a feminist podcast. Let's all just
okay. I wasn't fishing, but thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I do want to talk about our faux villain, Sir Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. A lot of problematic things with that, which my roommate recently reminded me that Sir Ben Kingsley famously won an Oscar for playing Gandhi.
Yes.
Yep.
Another odd choice. When I realized that, and then I saw this movie, it made me think that this was kind of like a joke on that, of like, oh, remember when I also played a famous Asian person?
I did not think of it like that. I don't know that it makes it okay, but that's a different lens to look at it through.
It is a weird thing. It was like, okay, we're calling out this in this movie, but there is kind of a retroactive joke to be made about him playing Gandhi.
Right. The statement is it's like a Bill Maher of statements. It's like, yeah, I see this. I see this for what it is. You don't get to say bad things, though.
And wasn't Bill Maher in this movie?
Yes,
Yeah.
Bill Maher was in this movie.
Yes.
As was Joan Rivers for a second, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My queen
Mm-hmm.
by default, because I'm gay. We have to. We have to honor Joan Rivers. But yeah, Sir Ben Kingsley, Danny Marshall, famously, you hate comedy. The most serious person I know. How did you feel about this reveal that Sir Ben Kingsley was not really the Mandarin, but a man named Trevor?
One of the biggest laughs of and I remember there are certain moments you remember in the theaters. This one, especially, there are like 3 or 4 big guttural laughs. This was one of them, and I thought this was a great reveal. I loved it. I also, as a comic book fan, I thought this was an AIM story going into this, and then the Mandarin.
Yeah, well, Instant Messenger.
Yep. And I was very interested to see how they would kind of connect these two villains and what this was, and I was totally surprised when I first saw this, and I was looking forward to it, rewatching this, knowing this, and you forget about that when you think of because of Guy Pearce and. I think of the third act a lot of times when I'm thinking about like the climax of the movie, and I forget about Trevor. And I think I can't say I have seen all of Ben Kingsley's work, but I think it's the funniest he's ever been. I
feel confident that that's true.
Yeah. But I thought it was really well executed and a smart way to bring in the 10 rings, to bring in the character of the Mandarin, to get comic book fans interested, and to make it a lot easier for the everyday Marvel fan to get it. And it was a surprise for everybody. I thought it was well executed. And then they end up bringing the 10 rings in, 15, 10, 12, whatever years later with Shang-Chi. So it was a nice seed planted that they gave themselves an out, but also were able to reuse it. I thought it was well done.
Can I say one thing? That when he finally does discover the Mandarin, watching that summer 2022, didn't that kind of feel like the Mar-a-Lago raid? I mean, like we're hounding on a Spanish-style dirty complex in Florida, and it's just exactly. I imagine Mar-a-Lago looking exactly like that on the inside, just kind of gross. Folks playing ping pong.
Now,
I falls asleep drinking a beer.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Does that do it for the fellas? Just to have a bunch of women in bikinis high off their ass playing ping pong?
I'm really competitive. I don't like losing at anything. And
yes, that's how it works. Yes, 100%.
Okay, because I'm like, man, he's really just recreated an early 2000s rap music video, and I'm like, do people still like this? I'd rather have a plate of food. I don't know. That's just me. Well, speaking of plate of food, this is going to be an amazing transition. You should go grab a plate of food while listening to our sponsors, because we're going to take a break.
That's the stuff that wins awards. Good job. Oh,
yeah. We're getting a Webby. That's why you're here, Patrick. I know your family's connected to it. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about everybody's favorite, Don Cheadle. So let's keep it right here and don't go anywhere.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomwell CBD Store and PhenomwellCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we're back. Thank you for coming back. You stayed just like you promised you would. Danny Marshall, you love Don Cheadle. What is your favorite Don Cheadle?
I do love Don Cheadle. I'm a big Ocean's Don Cheadle fan.
So I've heard.
Ocean's 11, Ocean's 13. Ocean's 12 is the Iron Man 2 of that franchise.
Dang.
Ocean's 12 is not good. I'll stand by that. But that's my favorite Don Cheadle. So if this has become 616 Ocean's 11 podcast, that's fine.
Well, infamously, as I'm sure we all know, I once wrote a sketch show called Don Cheadle is Not in This Show, to which Don Cheadle did reply on Twitter. He was definitely not coming to the show. It was a formative moment for me. I talk about it all the time. But so I love Don Cheadle. I think we might have talked about this on the Iron Man 1 podcast, or maybe someone mentioned to be in person. But I do think, we have to honor the fact that this was originally Terrence Howard's role, that Terrence Howard either walked away or was fired from. And I do think I would have bought Terrence Howard a little bit more as the Iron Patriot than Don Cheadle. That's just me. Patrick Webb, you seem like you have a thought.
Don't agree. I think that Don Cheadle elevated this role in a way that, it always bugs me when actors get replaced or they do replace them. And this one, I'm like, okay, I'm happy to. I like this.
Okay. So you prefer the more slender U.S. soldier?
Yeah, I just think that because at this point he's a political appointee. He's not doing he's not on the front lines, he's just wearing a suit and I think he is the Iron Patriot, isn't he, on the front line? Right. I just mean someone in Rhodes's position, and what I assume, I know nothing about military, but I have to imagine that someone in Rhodes's actual position isn't firing a lot of guns except for fun. I don't know if that's the thing that they do, but I think that he brings something to the role that's needed for these movies.
Yeah, I feel that. Danny, how do you like War Machine? Is it fair? This is a better question. Danny, is it fair to call War Machine / Iron Patriot the sidekick to Iron Man?
Yeah, I would say so. I really like War Machine. I like the addition of him. I like his added role from Iron Man 2, honestly. I think that's one of the best parts of Iron Man 2 is Don Cheadle in that. I when we were watching the first Iron Man, that's when I think it had occurred to us that it was, I would agree with you that Terrence Howard.
Yes, that's where it was then. Yeah, when Patrick wasn't here.
Patrick wasn't invited. So I think Don Cheadle's a better actor. I enjoy watching Don Cheadle overall so much better. But I think that I buy the military man of Terrence Howard more so than I do that of Don Cheadle. I think Don Cheadle's Rhodes is more of the friend, whereas Terrence Howard's is more of the arm's distance, military kind of friend acquaintance, and that really was a strong part of Iron Man. I understand for the plot what they did with Iron Patriot. I didn't really need it. I didn't love it that much. I also he's just I like Don Cheadle as the figure of Rhodes. I agree with you, Patrick. I think though, the suit's too big for him. I think him he's in one of the episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that's a great appearance by Don Cheadle's Rhodes. And this is good, but it is a political figure at this point, and it brings in politics and the world. Never in a Marvel movie have we had the vice president or president show up into that, and we don't ever again. It's very weird.
He got arrested.
Yeah. So it's the stake when you think about improv, the stakes are you're the president or you're the moon or you're
try
dead.
Not to. I try not to.
But so they heighten to that. They heighten to president now, but then we have so many movies we never get, obviously, because we get into other galaxies and whatnot. But, we basically with all other, parts of the government, it deals with William Hurt's character and just kind of like faceless people and organizations, where here we actually bring in the president, the vice president, and Rhodes' this direct connection to both of them, which was interesting because I was very taken aback by that, oh wow, we're finally getting the political side of this, but also it's kind of lost after this movie.
Yeah. It's a very in your face allegory, but I do like it how they're like, well, War Machine sounds like it won't sell. What if we call him the Iron Patriot? It's an allegory for like American military might. But also little detail at the end that Guy Pearce's character slips in as to why he's killing the president. He's like, yeah, you polluted the ocean and like an oil company polluted the ocean and you pardoned everyone. Right. I was like, ooh, maybe he got a point.
And you mentioned, okay. So
also the fact that it was thrown in there was so funny.
Right. Just a little, where we were like, oh, carry on.
So Don Cheadle, Shantae, he stays. But oh God, you don't get that reference. But God, I'm so mad at you. The plot, Patrick, explain to me what does Guy Pearce? What does he want? What does AIM want? What is AIM's aim?
AOL Instant Messenger. Well, the writers were clearly big MSN, Yahoo Messenger stands in the early, the late 90s, early 2000s. I think that this is one of the misses for me for Iron Man 3 because I do really, really like it. But I think that they tried to make Guy Pearce's character more than just like two-dimensional, but it wasn't super original. Like, it's like, okay, he was kind of bullied. So he's got this, this kind of alt-right guy backstory, even though he's a super genius. It's like, oh, I was bullied and then I became a bad guy. And
I lost a date with Pepper Potts.
And I didn't get to date Goop founder Pepper Potts. And so now I'm going to help amputees, but also destroy the world. And we're like, oh, okay, pick a lane, guy. Come on.
Yeah, I will say this. This is my favorite, do I want to say, not necessarily plan, but like, it's my favorite execution of a plan to like hire an actor to distract everybody with terrorist plots that are my idea.
Right.
And then I have these agents and then like, the whole thing, like we haven't even gotten to Tennessee and that dumb kid.
I cannot wait to talk about Tennessee. But the line where there's a really subtle line that Guy Pearce delivers very well, where he goes, Tony Stark says, the Mandarin. And he goes, yeah, a little over the top. He's a stage actor. We're working on it. Like that was the problem. Yeah. That he was too big for camera. I clapped alone in my apartment.
That's what those slides are there for. J.D. Marshall, you famously were a child actor. So how did you deal with the young Moppet, the Ward, the Dick Grayson of the whole thing? What was his name? Harley Keener.
I thought it was, and now we have so much of this youngin and protagonist and traveling together. Yeah, youngin and Olden traveling together. Like Damon and me hanging out.
I'm the young one.
And I mean, not to compare this to the Star Wars universe, but they are kind of hitting the nail on the head with the Leia Obi-Wan journey, the Grogu Mando journey. So this was an early kind of version of that served a purpose. Was it the most necessary? No, but I did like that it was a thorn in Tony's side, and I think I liked the character more than you two. I didn't love him, but I thought that it made for as a comedy. From a comedy standpoint, I laughed every time Tony talked to the kid because he hated the kid, and even though he liked the kid and the kid what's his only help, he was also like, "You're clearly just a child," and he talked to him as if it was his little brother, and I really enjoyed how he treated the kid because every line was funny. Just the moment he drove off, everything. So I just thought that was, from a comedy standpoint, it added a nice levity that also was a nice little thorn in his side to get him to have a few panic attacks along the way.
I will agree. I agree, and I will definitely agree that I loved when he was mean to the kid. That really spoke to me. Patrick, you and I have that. We have that relationship, I feel.
Yes, you are mean to me, and I return for more, hoping that you'll build me a suit.
I know. I'm never going to do it. But I'm not heartless. I do get excited like when the freaking the pieces of the suit are like banging at the door. The kid I guess throws some like hot water on the lot because it's frozen. They fly out there and he watches the sky. I'm like, I love that. It's like, yeah. I'm a fan of Iron Man. I'm his. He is my favorite. I was gonna say I'm his favorite. He is my favorite.
I took the kid from this watch. I do like the kid a little bit more. I do agree, Danny. There are some comedic elements to it, but like as I looked at Iron Man 3 as like the third act of the Iron Man story, this was Tony's chance to be faced with like the childhood he never had, and so he's angry at it, and that's kind of how I interpreted it. Also, the fact that you said he throws hot water on a lock brings up one of my favorite things about this whole Tennessee storyline.
Which is
I just want to say this. Ooh, thank you. Is what you get when you get a room full of LA folks writing a movie and they go, well, where can Tony go where it's freezing on Christmas? Well, Tennessee, of course. And I know that it does snow in the Smokies. Don't save your letters. But to that point, why did we make it the imaginary Rose Hill, Tennessee? Why not make it Gatlinburg? We could have had the Battle of Dollywood, and that would have been lovely to watch. Like Dolly could have had a cameo. Let Tony fight these guys on the Stampede. Like that would have been fun to see.
This is the most Southern this podcast has ever been. Patrick Rose, famously from West Virginia, he knows these areas.
It's like, and then there's one line where they're in Miami, and Tony's like, anybody know the distance between Tennessee and Miami? And Henchman with ponytail number 1 is like, oh yeah, 822 miles.
Yeah.
And it's like, at what point in Tennessee? Are we like Nashville, Memphis? Just the tip? Like, and why does this guy know that?
Dang, I mean, we'll never know.
I'm just lamenting for the Battle of Dollywood that we'll never get to see.
Oh yeah, we're big in Tennessee,
it was a little stupid. I feel like to have. It was nice to get a different setting away from the Malibu, and Miami is pretty much Malibu. So it's nice to be elsewhere, but yeah, none of that makes sense. I'm with you. Like it's not, the specifics of that were weird. I did write down the line, one of my other big laughs, which was when he told the kid, no need to be a pussy about it, which I thought was the least Marvel thing that Marvel did up to that point. And I was like, holy crap, that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the movie's not feminist.
Right.
But okay, I want us to go into the 2 action set pieces of the third act, which the first one I really love, the whole Air Force One, all the people falling. Mm-hmm. I love this scene. I think this is so cool where he's got to like catch all the people and through the magic of electricity, they can magnetize if they all touch. I think it's really cool. And also, I'm just going to throw it out there. This like buzz cut man who's got the extremis, Savin is his name.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I'd like to know what he's doing.
I did it for you. Yeah.
He, it kind of worked when he put it on the little goofy pilot's hat. I was like, that looked good. That looked good to me. Okay.
There's a weird like anti-American subtext to this movie that I've noticed watching it this time too. Is like I think our culture is very like e pluribus unum, one out of many. Like one person can be the hero, and there's a lot of like Tony can't do it alone in this one, so he needs like the help of greater good. Like call it what you will, like communism subtext. But like the moment where he's saving all those people, like he's like, how many can I save? And then Jarvis goes 4. And he's like, okay, well, then we all have to work together. And I think that's kind of a cool, like, message at that moment in the movie.
Yeah. A wonderful message.
It's interesting to see the villains of the Iron Man movies and of the whole MCU of when they are, Earthlings, of where they're from and who they are, and they're always, and I always say this, they're always this timestamp of when they're made because, oh wait, Iron Man, it's the Middle East. And then we get into Iron Man 2 and it's like Eastern European, and that's what a lot of the later stuff is with Civil War and other things like that. But we have Winter Soldier, and it's America. It's kind of like America's coming down from within, and it was a little kind of foreshadowing real life of kind of us taking ourselves down. But I too enjoyed it. I also I don't know the science behind electrocution, hand holding, and
totally
also are they not gonna get electrocuted if they go into the ocean while being magnetized? I don't know. I don't know.
He let them go.
He lets them. I feel like though, where does that energy go? That's all my question.
Right. When the hyper advanced tech suit lets them go, they won't get shocked. That's the science.
Danny, obviously. We get a hilarious bit after that where the truck hits the suit and you're like, oh no, Tony, but it was
great
just
reveal.
Yeah, amazing reveal. This is where we go into from there to the end. I'm like, yeah, this movie. Danny, how did you feel about the what do they call it? The party protocol or something? The house party protocol or whatever it was. Where all the suits
so from just a creative mindset place. I love it. It's a playground. It literally is a playground. It's a great video game level to play. It's really cool. And if you like, which I haven't done in a while, but I know I did shortly after the movie came out or when it came out on DVD or whatever, and they had more information about all the suits. I looked into them and they all had their purposes. They all had their nicknames. I love that. But it wasn't, that's not part of the story. That was a nice spectacle. I did think that it was it was just some parts of it were unbelievable when it's just these two guys. He's still not in, definitely not in suits. Also, I don't know why Rhodey couldn't get a suit. I think he should have gotten a suit. But just like when they're fighting these just like unkillable people and they're jumping over these giant, things. Yeah. I was just like, oh wow, I'm surprised that they last this long before the cavalry arrives, type of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at. I will say with both of these, both the plane and this sequence, and overall the movie, I love Jarvis. I think Jarvis really helps.
Agreed.
I think Paul Bettany's great. I think Jarvis is better than Vision. I would rather have him be as a kind of an encyclopedia for the audience, but also a nice grounded factor for Tony. He has his own story, and we get this whole fucking Vision, Wanda story, which is great in its own way, and also annoying in its own way. But I love Jarvis as Tony's assistant, and just how he is the perfect yes man to Tony, and just because he is a person, so he can't really do much, and Tony gets his way. I love the dynamic. I've always loved Jarvis, so I think he's a nice way that kind of lets us. He's a much streamlined way to get through these moments too.
Yes, and this is a perfect time. As producer Michael knows, this is an acting podcast, and I would like to institute a Jarvis impersonation challenge. I'd like us to each do our best impersonation of Paul Bettany's Jarvis. I will go last, of course. Patrick, would you please go first with your Jarvis impersonation?
I will. This is going to be off the cuff. I haven't tried it, but here we go. Sir, I don't seem to be having a problem at all, except the last words I have are cranberry.
That was great.
That was very
good.
good.
The line he says, which made me laugh out loud.
Yes. Cranberry. Danny Marshall, coming to you.
God.
Haven't been as many commercials as Patrick Webb, so I'm so sorry.
Not nearly as experienced of an actor as Patrick. So charting a course to Tennessee. Not there.
Okay. That's good.
I don't have my Paul Bettany down.
All right. Okay, here we go. Sir, I can't stand here and watch you jerk off again.
My favorite
I do remember
Jarvis
that
line.
scene. Yeah, I remember that.
The jerk off scene.
I'm so sorry I had to dunk on y'all like that.
So your masturbation is at 94%.
That's the one.
One of Jarvis's many feminist lines.
Again, this is a feminist movie and a feminist podcast.
Sir, it's Mrs. Potts. Shall I hang up as usual?
Mrs. Potts. My goodness. All right. So we're in this, shipyard explosions. Pepper saves the day. She got a little bit extremist. I kind of wanted that to be her thing. I was like, oh shit, this is her superpower. But they're gonna just between then and with like Avengers Age of Ultron, she gets rid of it. I think that this sets up Age of Ultron because Tony's like, ooh, flying robots. There's an idea. You know? Cool.
Yeah.
Proven.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's honestly that's the film. We get a nice like post-credit sequence with Bruce Banner. Everybody watch She-Hulk. It's great. And that's the end of the film. But sunglasses fell. That's the end of the film. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Two final thoughts.
Or any stray thoughts that we haven't gotten to.
Yeah. So I always loved Happy Hogan, and I think he really gets to have his moments in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice because it's the first time Jon Favreau gets more of a role because he's not behind the camera. He is in a creative consultant way, but not in a direct writer or director way, which gives him more flexibility. And I think he is a great actor, and I think he's really funny, and it's nice to have him there and to see his character grow as well in their little Stark Industries universe. It's also, besides, Pepper, he's who, Tony cares about the most. So there's some stakes there when he gets severely injured. I loved that whole use of Happy, and I think he shines. One note I wrote down that, and this is an across the board Marvel problem, but to me this was been really, I guess, clear and evident in this movie and the first Avengers movie. Is the amount of product placement is a little ridiculous for me. There was. There's every car is an Audi, which is you can tell that's not hard to find, but there's like clear shots where he's in the van with Adam Pally, which is a great character, a great scene, but it's like shot reverse shot, and they stay on one shot where it just says Oracle on the side. The setup he gives to Harley is all FiOS, is all Verizon FiOS, so it's like very clear. It's like, yeah, we get it. And that's one thing that I know Marvel did and still does. It's a little frustrating, but I clocked it every single time.
Danny, that's the biz. That's the biz we're in.
I want to say there's something I wrote down in Tony calls Kildrich Westworld at one. He's like,
oh yeah,
back up Westworld. And I went, when did Westworld come out? No, Westworld didn't come out until 2016. I know that there's a Michael Crichton, it's either a book or a movie, but what a weird reference to make for any, who has seen that by 2013? So, I'm sure that they knew that Westworld was in, pre-production, and he's like, I'm going to get ahead of this and do a Westworld joke that's going to land
that's crazy.
Many years later, because I definitely have never caught that before.
Damn. People love Westworld. Any other Iron Man 3 thoughts before we go into our final segment? This is your last chance. Let it be known.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I like Pepper's moment at the end. I think that they just from my writer brain, working on a couple of movies myself right now, there's just too much going on in that last act. It's like I think we had to pick one. Like the moment where we think Pepper dies, I still can't get over the fact that we just do not let that second breathe at all. Tony's like, all right, time to fight. Back to jokes. I was like, what? What are we doing? It was just like, yeah, we just needed to pick some stuff and go with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And off that, I think it was nice and needed to get this mental health side of it. But I do think that it was done to the most simplified, minimalistic way possible.
Yeah.
And as you know, how prevalent anxiety and panic attacks are in our society and generation, I kind of was like, oh, that was really quick to get over, or but again, I understand it's a movie. I understand, what the time constraints and the plot they had, but that was kind of a thing where it was nice, but I think they could have spent more time kind of fleshing out exactly what that would look like.
Yeah. I do like the destroying of the suits at the end. He's like, I recognize I'm the problem. I'm going to stop being the problem, even though we know that he doesn't.
Yeah, he changes. This is whether you see this as a standalone or the final act of 3 movies, he changes and he says that,
Mhm.
and he gets rid of his fake heart, and which, you know, only to undo the next time we see him, and then but we get, you know, this kind of full circle. He did grow, he did change, even in this own thing of seeing, you know, how reliant and you know, he's tackling that part of his mental health and that protection.
Right. And then we get an after credit scene where he's doing therapy with a physicist. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
Two things. What is it? So he does do the surgery, and I don't think he undoes. I think he just finds a way to like just kind of put the thing on his chest, that so it's not like connected to his heart anymore.
Mhm.
You remember like in Endgame where he's fighting with Cap and he like rips it off his chest and like hands it to him. So I think it's much more. It's like a removal thing. And in terms of like the mental health thing, I think this was the best we could do in 2013, because we are
for sure.
We're 3 years out from that Gillette commercial where it said men can cry.
Okay, so we didn't know at this point. That's good to know.
We didn't know.
Yeah, fair.
I take back my criticisms. Yeah, I
We
agree.
know, we learn men can breathe heavily and put snow on their face in this movie.
Yeah. That's where that was
the scene where the kid's like, "You're a mechanic, just fix yourself," and he goes, "Okay."
Yeah.
Just build something. I was like, this is what we thought therapy was in 2013, and okay.
a man just gotta do some work with his hands. And speaking of working with your hands, it's time for our favorite segment of This Week and Every Week, Fuck, Marry, Kill. We're going to take 3 characters from this movie and decide whether we're going to fuck, marry, or kill them. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, our 3 candidates up for discussion are Tony Stark, Pepper Potts, and Happy, Jon Favreau's Happy. Is that right?
I could do that.
Ooh, this is going to be rough. This is going to be a rough one. I love Tony Stark, so I'm going to marry him. I'm going to go first, by the way. I didn't say that, but I'm going to go first. I love Tony Stark. I'm going to marry him. That just feels like an easy decision for me. You know what? He's always going to love Pepper. So I'm so sorry. I've done this before in another Iron Man podcast. I did like Pepper so much in this movie, but I'm still going to kill Pepper Potts. I've done it before. I feel like I'll do it again.
Oh no.
She's got to go. And Happy, you know, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I also love Downton Abbey. And
That was a good beat.
That's Happy's. He thinks it's elegant, and I think it's elegant.
He thinks it's
and I think we can have, you know, some Downton Abbey and chill time, and some Downton Abbey downtime. How's that? We're gonna workshop this, and I'm gonna fuck Happy, which is a sentence I love to say. So, how about I go to Danny Marshall?
Yes.
Give me your selections.
Okay. I think mine might be a little controversial.
On this podcast?
I am going
Renowned feminist podcast 616.
I'm going to marry Happy Hogan. I feel protected and secure with him, and he's loyal, and that's what I need in a life partner. I'm gonna kill Tony Stark.
Disgraceful.
Because I the reason I'm not fucking Tony Stark is because I don't know if he'll actually be there presently. You know, will it be just the suit? And I don't know. And also he's probably thinking about other stuff. I think Pepper will be present on the day, let's say. And I would fuck Pepper Potts. But Tony, I don't know if he'd be there because, he's just all over the place. So that's why I would kill him and fuck Pepper and marry my boy Happy Hogan.
All right.
No one's gonna be mad at you for killing a billionaire. It's fine.
No,
Yeah,
I respect your choices. They're not mine, but I respect those. Patrick Weddy.
Okay, I think we have all 3 different answers, which is interesting. I also agree. Tony Stark is my favorite character in all of Marvel. I fell in love with him from the get-go, and I stayed in love with him. I think that Robert Downey Jr. does a great job. So I'm gonna fuck him because listen, I don't think he's going to be a great life partner, but man, oh man, is that going to be some good fuckery. I'm going to marry Pepper Potts because I also love Pepper Potts, and I feel like she's present and there and she takes care of him even though she's got her own shit going on, and she's trying to work on their relationship. And I think that's very mature for someone who's a CEO. They're so like out of touch, and she does a good job. I'm gonna marry Pepper, and I'm gonna kill Happy because I think it would have been good for this movie. Actually, if Happy were to die in this movie, I think it would have been a little stronger.
He would have been the Phil Coulson of this movie.
And as we know, you need to kill a Phil.
Mm-hmm.
You need to kill Phil.
You need to
Only
kill
for
Phil.
him to get his own show that no one talks about.
We should. At least the last 3 seasons were very good.
Those were the 3 I didn't see.
Well, you miss a lot of time travel.
Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating. This was fire. I love when we all have 3 different answers. Beautiful. And I feel secure with mine, and yours were very interesting. Thank you all so much. Okay, so this is podcast 616. We normally do this later, but first I want to click over to producer Michael to hop on the mic. Famously didn't like Iron Man 3. Truly, you were dead to me for about a week. But now, Michael, if you want to hop on, how did you feel about Iron Man 3 after watching it for this podcast episode?
It moved up on my ranking for the movies. At first, it was bottom tier for the Iron Man movies, and rewatching yesterday, it's 1-3-2 now. So, yeah.
We'll take a 1-3-2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I'll take that.
For my Chicago fans, I must prefer a 3-1-2.
3-1-2.
Listen, if there was a Battle of Dollywood, it would have been 3-1-2. Just saying.
A nice wheat beer of a series.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Yes, the 3-1-2 beer. Beautiful. Thank you, Michael. I'm glad. I think you've grown, and I hope you appreciate that growth that you've gone through. This is the correct answer. This is podcast 616. Thank you so much, Patrick and Danny, for doing this podcast. Patrick Webb, if anyone is like, man, that sounds like a great voiceover and on-camera actor, where can I find him? Where can people find you?
You know what? Maybe Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter at the PWeb. Yeah, I'll answer that. I'll find it. I'll follow you back. But also, Damon, Michael, thanks for having me. I'm actually a fan of the show, so this is great.
Wow. Okay, I've literally never heard that before, so thank you.
And you won't again.
Danny Marshall, I want to follow you online. Finally, I'm going to unblock you. Where can I find you to unblock your profiles?
Oh, thanks, man. So you go to settings and go to restricted list, and you have to first unrestrict, then you have to unblock, then you have to get my real number. You could follow me at _Danny Marshall on all social media. I'm usually post some stupid bits on TikTok or Instagram, and to my 12 Twitter followers. And I am one of the panelists on the podcast Bullshit Alert, which is at Bullshit Alert without the I, which Damon was a guest on earlier this past season. That's where you can find me. And I'm, hopefully going to do some shows in LA and be around that area.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la.
Yes, Bullshit Alert is great. We stan that podcast. I stan any podcast that has me on, and I'm not afraid to say that. You're listening to Podcast 616. You can follow Podcast 616 on Twitter at Podcast 616 P3. That P3 stands for Press Play Productions. That it blissfully gives us airspace. So thank you so much. If you want to follow me, I'm Damon Royster on Instagram, Damon Royster 88 on Twitter, DaymanRoyster. You can also follow me at Gay Frazier on Twitter and Instagram. That's gay with 2 A's because that's how gay it is, honeys. Yes, good. Iron Man 3 gives me life, as do you. Michael, if you want to hop on the mic one more time, what would you give this podcast episode? What letter grade would you give us?
I loved it. I gave it another A.
Another
Oh
A.
my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. If I ever fail, I'm that person. Those guests are never coming back. But thank you for passing. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful day. I love the Iron Man franchise. There was no reason to do these movies, but we did them anyway. So have a great day. And don't forget that with great power comes even greater responsibility.
Iron Man's famous quote.